Hey everybody, how we doing? Wow, live mic, here we go. Welcome to Awkward Teenage Years. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out. Thanks to everyone watching at home. Don't forget that thing in the oven. My name's Grant. I'm your host tonight. This is a very big night because we are now officially a Frigid New York show, which means once a month you are going to be able to see us either here or under St. Mark's for the rest of the year. What a way to kick it off. The kid who couldn't smile. So thank you guys for coming out. Just to fill you in, if this is your first time here, we are a live storytelling show. That means we've got this awesome lineup of guests. They are going to come up here and share like true personal stories from their middle school and high school years. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm going to take the time now to ask you, please, like silence your cell phones, no flash photography, anything like that. And we're going to have a great time. We're so excited you guys are here. I'm going to riff a little bit just to get you guys warmed up here. So Halloween is coming up. It's October. And so when I knew I was hosting tonight, I was trying to think like, okay, so like Halloween, there's got to be something from high school I'm not thinking of. Like sometime I wore a costume, sometime like I went to a party, and then I realized this is my opportunity to talk about Judgment House. Does anyone out there know what I'm talking about? Anyone on stage? Okay, so I'm from Alabama, and very Bible Belt, church-heavy kind of hometown. And every Halloween, all the churches in my hometown felt like they had to have their own roster of events on Halloween because, like, they thought everyone was going to convert to Satanism in one night. So one year, my friend Abby came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm getting a group together to go to my church and go to the Judgment House. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "What's Judgment House?" And she's like, "Well, it's kind of like the church version of a haunted house, but you really just have to see it for yourself." And this is truly the most bonkers thing I've ever seen. So it's really like an immersive play where you walk from room to room in the church as the story progresses, and different actors are playing the characters. Like you only know who someone is if they're wearing the same jacket. But let me lay out the plot of a Judgment House. So first scene, first room, high school teenagers drinking, pre-gaming for homecoming, going nuts. But there's one good Christian kid in the mix. Remember her? She's like, "Hey guys, I haven't seen you at church lately." And they're like, "Nerd." So then finally someone goes, "All right, let's go to the game. I'm driving." And then you move into the next room and there's been a car accident. Like truly, like so the busted front end of a car is in this room in this church, and all the high schoolers are dead, like laying around. Like it's just horrible fake blood and everything. There's paramedics rushing in, checking on them. It's really intense, like on a community theater level. And then you get to the next room and it's really dark, except for a spotlight, kind of like this one, on a podium where a man in a white robe holding a gavel is standing in front of the high schoolers who just died in this car accident. And the guy in the white robe looks at the good Christian kid and goes, "You have been a faithful servant of Christ, so I allow you entry into the gates of heaven." And she's like, "Yay!" And she runs into the door on the right. And then he looks at the rest of the high schoolers who were drinking and pre-gaming and goes, "And you had several opportunities to turn from your wicked ways, and you did not take them. Therefore, I must condemn you to an eternity in hell." And he bangs his gavel, and the other kids get taken in the door on the left. And guess which door you go in next? That's right, you're going to hell. And so you literally go through this door, and this church went all out. Like the lights are off except for just red lights shining down. People are chained to the walls crying for help. And in the middle of the room, there's the devil. And it's clearly a dude in like a rubber devil mask, but with the red lights, it's a little bit convincing. And he has some kind of diabolical speech. It's like, "Yes, you sinners will spend eternity with me." And then you finally go to the last room, and it's heaven. And heaven is like they've put astroturf on the floor and like and they've painted there's paintings on the walls to look like sprawling meadows and blue skies, and people are there dressed as angels. The good Christian kid gets a white robe put on her, and then suddenly there's Jesus standing right there in the middle of the room. Jen, he gives some kind of like all are saved through me kind of speech. And then you all file out. And I kid you not, Jesus gives everybody a hug as you leave. And that was the judgment house. And then we just went over to Abby's and ate candy for the rest of the night. But it is truly maybe the craziest experience I've ever had on a Halloween in high school. And so on that note, let's get the show on the road. Our first storyteller of the night, he's a stand-up comedian. You've probably seen him on The Moth or Tuesday Nights at the Stand. It's his first time on the show. We're very excited to have him. Give it up for Saad Najam. It is still COVID. Everyone be safe. All right, you're good.
All right. So I think that for a lot of us, we would attend the 180 days of school, the 10 months, just so that we can, like the reward for that was summer vacation. So literally every year, all I can think about was summer vacation. And when I was in 8th grade, I did everything right. I did well in school. I got into the high school that my mother wanted me to get into. So when summer vacation was approaching, I started making all these plans because there was no way that my mother wouldn't let me do the things that I wanted to do. And the things that I wanted to do when I was a 13-year-old kid was play basketball and video games whenever I wanted to. But a couple of days before graduation, my little brother and I, we were horsing around, playing around with detergent, and we spilled a ton on the floor, and I ended up like slipping, and I broke my toe. Went to the doctor, went to the ER. I got a cast on it, and the doctor said that you're going to have the cast on your foot for 2 months, for 60 days, which meant I can't play any basketball this summer vacation. So I started doing the compromise in my head, and I was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to play video games this whole summer vacation, and that's fine. I just get to chill and whatever. But my mother had other plans. She was very, very livid with us for the fact that we like cost another like medical bill. We spilled 5 gallons of detergent. She was just annoyed. She wanted to punish us. So the punishment that she decided was that all of us are going to go to summer Sunday school. I don't know if you guys know about summer Sunday school, but summer Sunday school is not only on Sundays. It is every day, Monday through Sunday, weekends included. Obviously, I'm crushed. My summer is being taken from me. I did all this work. I did all my homework for 10 months, and my summer is being taken away from me. Pleading with my mother, she doesn't relent. We have to go to this summer Sunday school. So first day, get up, we get to the summer Sunday school, and my brothers and I are immediately just like kind of taken aback by the teacher. He's like this old man with this long white beard, pudgy man. He's just kind of like felt like he like enjoyed the fact that he took summer vacation. He takes summer vacation from children. And he just had these weird methods of disciplining kids. So like if a kid would be like talking across the room, he would keep a yardstick with him and throw it at them like a javelin with impeccable accuracy. That was his way of disciplining kids. And he was also doing the biggest crime of all, which was assigning homework. But the homework he was assigning was really weird. He would say things like, tonight you have to recite 100 prayers to God. And I was thinking, how is this guy going to check if I recited my 100 prayers to God? There's no way he's that cool with God, that God's going to tell him I didn't recite my 100 prayers. But anyways, we went for like about a week. And after suffering through it for like about a week, my older brother had a grand plan. And the plan was, we're just not going to go to this summer Sunday school anymore. If we used to take the bus there, and if we took the bus just 2 more stops, we'd be at Brighton Beach. So he made the plan that we're just going to stay on the bus and we're going to have a beach summer. And I was excited. I was elated. My summer is being given back to me. There's something that I can finally do this summer. Yeah, I was just like so ready for it. So the next day, we wake up super early before my mom wakes up. We like stuff a ton of bed sheets into one of our book bags, hide it underneath the books, put shorts underneath our shorts so that we have extra clothes, so that our like regular school clothes don't get wet. We get on the bus, we go by the stop that we were supposed to get like off on, stay on the bus, get off. We get to the boardwalk. I'm looking at the beach. I see the water. I see the horizon. I'm so excited. I'm so ready. My heart is racing. I just can't wait to like put our stuff down and run into the water. We put our stuff down. As we're getting to the water, I'm like this close to like about like to jump in. And my older brother grabs me and he says, "You can't go in." Now I'm looking at him dumbfounded. Like, what is the reason I can't go in the water? It doesn't make any sense. Why are we here if I can't go in the water? And he's like, "You have a cast on your foot. If you get it wet, mom's going to know." He didn't care about my foot. He cared about getting caught. And he looks at me and he sees that I realize that I actually can't go in the water. And he kind of like digs it in a little bit more. And he goes, "Besides, someone has to watch our stuff anyways." And I'm like so annoyed with what he said. I'm so livid. I like put my head down, defeated. I walk back. I sit down and I'm just staring at them, like seething with anger. I'm raging inside, just looking at my older brother, teaching my little brother how to swim. They're frolicking. They're spraying each other with the water. I'm like, oh my God, I hate these guys. It's all coming back to me right now. And yeah, I think to myself, I'm going to tell on them. When we get home, I'm going to tell on them. And I immediately realized, like I said, my mother is a harsh woman when it came to punishments. There was not going to be a plea deal if I confessed. It was always a RICO case with my mom. We're all going down. So I was like, all right, that's not going to be helpful. So I had to find something to do to bide the time as I'm being mentally tortured. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out, what can I do? Like, what can I do to just get my mind and my vision off of my brothers? I can't think of anything. And then finally, it just like kind of dawned on me. I was like, let me try these 100 prayers to God. So I close my eyes and I lie down and I start reciting these 100 prayers to God. And I guess I started finally focusing on something else other than the envy that I was feeling at the time. My heart rate started to slow down and I started to pay attention to the sensations I was feeling. And I felt the sand underneath me massaging me, and I felt the sun kissing my skin, and I felt the wind cooling me down slowly, and I could smell the salt in the air. And after finishing the 100 prayers to God, I sat back up, and with fresh eyes, I opened my eyes up and I looked at my brothers and I couldn't help but smile. And I thought to myself in that moment, if this is how I'm going to spend this summer vacation is not going to be that bad after all. Thanks, guys.
So this is what's so great about being able to sit down during the other stories, because I watched you visibly like get mad in real time talking about your brother. It was brilliant because psychologically you just went right back there. Brothers can have that effect on you. I can talk about. I have two younger brothers, and even this last weekend, I was telling the story about one of them, and I just found myself being like, "Oh, I'm getting hot. Is anyone else getting hot?" Also, how great would it have been if, when you said those 100 prayers, you're like your teacher came up in scuba gear and was like, "Got it, good job," and just walked away. Anyway, one more time for Saad, everybody. Our next storyteller is a Moth Story Slam winner, and she is happy to be performing anywhere that is not her bedroom right now. We're very excited to have her back. Please give it up for Valarie Walker.
My freshman year in high school, I auditioned for the school musical. I was still riding the high of having been the female lead in our eighth grade production of Oliver, but I also had a healthy dose of low self esteem and thought I'd really be happy to just be in the chorus. So I remember pushing on the heavy auditorium door, and when I walked inside, my heart fell to my anus because there were far more people there than I thought there would be, and many of them were stretching in poses straight out of the movie Fame. And there was a group of people doing these vocal acrobatics over by the piano that I couldn't do when I was dreaming, and they were just warming up. So I sat down in the middle of the auditorium, halfway between the exit and the stage. The first thing they asked us to do was to sing a song that we had prepared, and I sang People by Barbra Streisand. Now, I could sing most of Barbra Streisand's album, covers well before I could actually pronounce the words because my mother was such a big fan. And Barbara's very much about breath control. And I was young and I had a lot of breath. So I thought I did well with it. And I put a couple of little vocal variations of my own in there to make it mine. And then feeling like I killed it, I sat down. The next part of the audition was to read sides from the musical in a various assortment of different combinations of two groups or two people, three people. And I thought that was really cool because everybody got to read with everybody because you never know who's going to have chemistry. And so it was a Friday after the audition, we go home and I try to put it out of my mind until Monday. I go to school, I check in my attendance in homeroom, and then I fly down to the gymnasium where the cast list is going to be posted. Two of my besties that also auditioned by my side. We run down, we get to the cast list, and I start from the bottom because I think I'll have a better opportunity, or I'll see my name faster. And then my friend digs me in the side as I'm working my way somewhere up the middle, and she says, "Valarie, the lead. You got the lead." And all the feels, like joy, happy, fear, puzzled, like what is going on? And then I look up and I see the name of who's been cast as the male lead opposite me. And it's this very talented Black boy named Sheldon. And suddenly my bubble of joy and good feeling began to dissipate a little bit because this was Staten Island, the borough where racism is the national pastime. So there was no way they were going to cast a white person opposite Sheldon. So I went from suddenly being the best and most appropriate for the role to being the best Black girl, most appropriate for the role. And only 2 Black girls had auditioned. So even though people were thanking me and saying congrats, my heart wasn't in it. That afternoon, I showed up in the auditorium for the first rehearsal, and all hell has broken loose. Everybody is all crazed. And I'm like, what's going on? And I said, Sheldon had to quit the play. His family is moving to a different state next week. And I suddenly knew, okay, 2 things. The understudy for Sheldon's going to take his place. The understudy is this white boy named Brian, a friend of mine. And if what I said earlier was true, that they would never cast a white girl opposite Sheldon, then surely I can't be cast opposite Brian. And I know my role is going to go to the white girl named Denise, who is my understudy. And so as everybody was making their way to go home because a rehearsal was canceled, I walked to the gym because the coach was the director. And I knocked on her office door and I went inside and I stammered because somehow I thought it would be better for me to give up the role than have it be taken from me. And so I stammered that I understood because of the events, what happened, that she was going to have to recast and it was okay and whatever. And she had a response that I'll never forget because it was so unexpected. She laughed. And I don't mean like a little titter like y'all just did, but I mean like this heifer guffawed and had like a snort in there somewhere. And she was like, I'm not recasting the show. Like, my job is to throw the best production that I can put on. I don't care who has a problem with this. They can pick it, kids can quit. Maybe that'll drive up ticket sales. And then she walked over to me and she put her hand under my chin and she raised my chin up so we were looking at each other eye. And she said, I know that life isn't fair. And I know sometimes it can be cruel. But don't you ever let me catch you making it easier for them to do what they do again. Do you understand? And I did understand. And I walked out of there much taller than when I walked in. And Brian and I put on a hell of a show. And it did cause a bit of an uproar. Nobody quit. And as far as I remember, nobody picketed. But honey, we sold out every single night. Thank you.
So I'm hung up on this detail here.
Okay.
The coach was the director
Yes.
of the school play.
Yes. Hybrid, no money.
In my school, our coaches would not be caught dead doing.
Female coach.
Oh, well, that helps. It's I guess more artistically inclined and everything. I love you to death. Give it up one more time for Valarie. Our next storyteller, we were just backstage, and I was asking her how she wanted to be introduced, and she says, "You have to say something about the fact that I'm Russian, and we are underneath the KGB bar." And that is why we are very excited to have her back for the third time on Awkward Teenage Years history. Give it up for Marina Petrova.
Okay, I hope it works. I grew up in a middle-sized city in Russia. It's about 300 miles south of Moscow. And in my family, we were very awkward about feelings. We never said, I love you. We never hugged each other. And we never even asked things like, oh, how was your day? And my mom's parenting style was more of a commander-in-chief type. And she was the same at work, too. She was a demanding chemistry professor at a local college, working hard to become the head of department one day. At home, we had a lot of rules, like you can only have one egg every 2 days because of cholesterol. Dessert doesn't count as food, and lunch always starts with soup. When my brother and I were becoming teenagers, she also added to her parenting style a new mode, which was a detective. You see, she really liked daytime TV shows, and those TV shows often show those gut-wrenching, tragic stories about kids and teenagers who used to be very quiet and all of a sudden got in a huge trouble with alcohol, drugs, or law. And the TV host in a gloomy voice always would say the same thing, that the last people to find out when it was already too late were always the parents. And my mom heard the message and interpreted it the best way she could. Every step we took, me and my brother, was watched. If we would come home after school a little bit later than early afternoon, she would rush to greet us with a smile, asking, how was our day? Except that we don't ask, how was your day in my family? both the smile and the question were fake, she didn't care how our day was. All she wanted was to sniff us for cigarettes and alcohol. And then she would look straight into our eyes to see if the pupils are dilated. And that made me very angry. First, because I couldn't stand fake niceness. And also because I was the nerdiest nerd in the nerdiest school in town with 2 friends total and 0 pocket money. I had nothing to hide at all. I had nothing to hide until the 8th grade. In the 8th grade, I had a huge tragedy that happened to me. On Valentine's Day, I didn't get a Valentine's card. Not from a friend, not from an admirer, anonymous or not. I was pretty sure I was the only girl in school who didn't get one. And this added on top of my previous love life disaster. At the summer camps I've been to, I was never invited to slow dance. So to summarize, I was in the 8th grade, and at the time I had 5 to 7 crushes, and none of them paid any attention to me. So obviously I concluded there's something wrong with the way I looked, because in that winter season, during the holiday feasts, I gained about 5 pounds and my thighs were touching each other. And I thought, this is not how girls on TV and in magazines look. So I started really hating those extra pounds. And I hated them so much that I was so determined to lose them, I didn't mind being hungry all the time. So I started eating less and less. And I knew, though, that the TV shows that my mom watched, they did talk about anorexia. So I was afraid that my mom at some point would stop me from looking the way I wanted and getting the attention from my 5 to 7 crushes. But to my luck, that year my mom worked really hard and was at home back from work only late at night. And the only adult in the home during the day was my grandmother. And my grandmother was very old, so I would take a few bites during breakfast or lunch, and I would smile and tell her I'm not hungry anymore, and she believed me. I fooled my poor grandma. I was very happy with the progress. I lost a lot of weight. My clothes was baggy. I had ribs showing up. I had hip bones showing. I was very excited, but I had no energy to express it because I was so weak. I only had energy to lie on the couch and read the books or watch TV shows. But one day, my mom came home during lunchtime, and I heard she went to the kitchen and she asked the grandma, what did I eat for lunch? And she said that I ate half a plate of soup, half a bowl, and that I said I wasn't hungry anymore. The moment later, she stormed into the living room saying, you're gonna eat right now? You're gonna eat soup, chicken, and potatoes right in front of me. And we had a huge fight. And then we had a second round of fight. And I was sitting on this couch. I was determined to push back, getting ready for the third round because my mom was very stubborn. And then she walked in, she sat down next to me, and then she started stroking my back. And she started calling me these pet names like baby fish and little kitten. And she said that she wants to cook me breakfast eggs for lunch. And what was surprising was that she was not fake at all. So I really felt empathy for her, and I agreed to eat, and we had lunch together. A week later, we went for a regular doctor checkup, and when I got with my mom at this hospital for children, and when we arrived there, I realized during the visit that she conspired with the doctor to aggressively scold me about the consequences 10 or 20 years later from starving myself during the formative years. And that doctor was very mean, let me tell you. And then, as if I wasn't even in the room, she told my mom, if she's ever too skinny, feed her porridge. Carbs will make her nice and chubby. And I felt so betrayed. And we went straight back into our tug of war mode. My mom was again the detective and I was the suspect. She always monitored how much I ate. She didn't trust if I said I ate out of home and I stopped eating out of home because I wanted not to gain weight. And we never had a heart-to-heart. So we never even talked about why I wanted to lose weight in the first place. And she always would tell me that when you grow up, you'll understand me. I grew up, I disagree with a lot of things, but I'm also amazed that the time it counted, it actually worked. Yes, thank you.
Oh man, I certainly remember the years of my parents going into watchdog mode too, because they knew all my friends were probably going to start drinking and smoking and everything. So there was definitely a period where they were like, "Have you been smoking? Have you been drinking? Let me smell your breath." I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I'm a good kid. You don't have to worry about me. My brother, on the other hand, is an entirely different story. Anyway, one more time for Marina, everybody. All right, our next storyteller is he is a filmmaker and a storyteller living out in Jersey City. He is a new Moth Story Slam winner. He's just got to rub the salt in that wound. But I'm very happy for him. He is the originator of the idea for this show. So please give a warm welcome to Will Clegg.
All right, that's me at 19. And you might not know it from the questionable hairstyle, but I was actually doing great when I was 19. I just finished my freshman year of college here in New York City, and it had gone far better than my wildest dreams. I gotten straight A's in all my classes. I felt like I'd really conquered the city. I've been doing everything that was on offer, going to see live music, theater, films, museums, all the nightlife, everything was going my way. So when I got back to school for the fall semester, I felt like there's nowhere to go but up from here. I'm just full of confidence as I declare myself a film studies major. I'm going to be the next Martin Scorsese or Jim Jarmusch, or I don't know yet, but it's all very exciting. And I start registering for classes, taking mostly film classes, but we do have a core curriculum that we have to take. And there's some requirements. And one that I'm really not too excited about is the science requirement. I'd been a good math and science student in high school. It's probably my better subjects, actually, but I just always found it so boring. And I didn't want to take any of those classes ever again, but I had to do it. I had to do 3 semesters of science. So I figured, let's get one out of the way right now. As I'm leafing through the course catalog, I found one that kind of piqued my interest. It's called Galaxies and Cosmology. It's in the astronomy department. It's like astronomy 101. And I found this interesting because I had recently been smoking a lot of marijuana. And one of my favorite things to do late at night with my buddies is get high and talk about the vast expanding universe and possibilities of alien life forms and all these great stoner things. And I thought it'd be good to maybe know some of the science behind it, but also this class only had a prerequisite of high school algebra. And I took calculus, so I'm like, this is going to be easy. And so I register, and I get to the class. The first session is amazing. There's only 14 kids in the class, which most of these like 1,000 level classes, there's 75, 100, 200 kids. 14 is amazing, and it's taught by a full professor. Her name is Jacqueline van Gorkum. She's a Dutch astrophysicist, renowned in her field. And when we walk in, she's just smiling ear to ear. She's got those big round glasses that like cover half of her face, and what I can only describe as a mom haircut, like with the bangs and the little bob, and you can just tell that she really loves being there and teaching and doing what she does. And everybody in the class is freshmen and sophomores. We're all kind of on the same level. It just feels right. And she gets into her first lecture. I think it's really enthralling, and I feel like I made the right decision here. So I go to every single class for this first few weeks, even though it starts at the ungodly hour of 10 a.m., which is like, might as well be 5 a.m. for 19-year-old Will here. And then we get our first problem set. And I take it home, and because I'm a procrastinator, I don't look at it until the night before it's due. And so when I pull it out, it's time to work on it. I don't really recognize a lot of what's going on in this problem set. And there's a lot of math also. Like, this is not what I wanted to do. I have to like calculate distances between stars and angles so that I can observe things from my point of view on Earth. And like, it's making my head hurt now just thinking about it. And some of it just seems like it's in another language even. And I start to think, maybe I haven't really been paying great attention to some of these lectures after all. I'm just going to plow through it, so I do the work that I can do, and I turn it in the next day. And then next week when it's time to get the grades back, I'm feeling a little nervous about it. I mean, I've been a pretty good student all the way through my academic career, and this is the first time that I'm feeling a little like maybe I didn't do great. And so I turned to the girl who always sits next to me. She's this little tiny Orthodox Jewish girl named Aviva. And she would never talk, but she always smiles. And so I figure she's friendly. And looking at her now, it's like she might be one of those kids who actually is in high school, but gets to go to college classes because she's super smart. She looks like she's like 15. And I'm like, that problem set was a doozy, right? And she's like, oh, no, I thought it was actually a lot of fun. Oh, God. Okay. So then Professor Van Gorkum comes over and gives Aviva her test or problem set back, and it says 100, has a little smiley face on it. And then she gives me mine, and it says 20. And email me, ! So I email her, and she invites me to come and visit her during her office hours. I've never been to office hours before, never needed to, but I say, okay, sure. And thankfully it's in the afternoon when my comprehension is a little bit better. And I get there, and it's everything you would expect an astrophysicist's office to be. It's like dusty old books and maps of the stars, antique telescopes. And she's just as warm and inviting as she is during class. Like, she sits me down. She says, I notice you've been daydreaming a lot during class. I'm like, yeah, I have been. She'll say something really interesting, and that'll just send me off on like a 30-minute tangent in my mind about some science fiction script I'd really like to write before I know it, the lecture's over. This is happening a lot. And probably everybody notices. And so she walks me through some like basic concepts, because I never took high school physics, actually. And it helps a lot. And I walk out of that meeting thinking, I think I'm going to be okay in this class. Not because I'm going to stop procrastinating, by the way, but just because it's actually easier than I thought it was. So, and the homeworks only count for 10% of the grade. The midterm is 20%, and the final is 70%. So the homework 20 doesn't really matter. It's okay. And so when it comes to midterm time, I just do like I always do. I cram for the entire day before. I catch up on a bunch of the readings. I borrow some notes from Aviva, and I feel pretty good walking into that test. And when we get the results back a week later, I have a 60. That's an F, y'all. I have never had an F. I've never even had a C on anything at this point. And that's 20% of my grade. I'm not feeling real great about the rest of the semester now. It's too late to drop it or make it pass fail. Like, I got to see this out, but I'm just kind of deeply embarrassed about what's happening now. And rather than do the work or listen to the lectures, I try to just push it away. I mean, there's a lot to distract me, all of New York City. I've got short films to write. I've got movies to watch from my other classes. And I start skipping classes, doing even less of the work. Professor emails me again, asks me to come to her office hours. I make an appointment, and then I never show up. And I just figure I'm just going to have to cram for the final and, try to ace that final and just whatever it is. It's maybe I get a B- or a C+ for the class or something, a little blemish on my record, whatever. I'm just going to forget it and move on. I'm not here to do science. I'm here to do film anyway. And so when it gets to the end of the semester, thankfully the film classes are pretty easy, so I don't have to worry as much about those. And I take like 5 full days that I'm going to work on the astronomy, and I don't do it for the first 2 days. So it's really 3 days in the end. But I catch up on everything that I possibly can. I go to the library. Like I've never even been in the vicinity of the library before now, but I spend a whole night in there the night before the test, and I show up exhausted, fueled completely by ramen and shitty coffee, and I'm shaking and I'm sweating, and I sit down, and she hands out the tests, and there's 10 questions on the test. And as I scan through it, I realized that like there's 3 of them that I don't even know how to start. So I just gotta do the best I can with the other 7 questions, I guess. And so I take the test, and I'm not feeling good about the 7 that I do feel like I can start, to be honest. And when the 2 hours are up, I still have 3 questions completely blank. And I turn it in, and I failed. I failed the class. Like it's just not possible for me to not get an F. And now I got to go home and explain that to my parents. So I go home for winter break back to North Carolina. I start thinking about how I'm going to tell them. And I don't do it. I don't know what to say. Like I've never even considered that this would happen to me before. And the day finally comes and we can check our grades online. And I go and I click through, and I've got A minus in the film classes, and then I get to galaxies and cosmology, and it says B. She promised us at the last class that there would not be a curve. So it's not mathematically possible for me to have a B. There's got to be some kind of mistake here. So I check to make sure that I'm logged in as me first, and I am, and it still says B. And so I shut it off. And I tell my parents there was a glitch. We didn't get our grades yet. I don't know. I'll figure it out tomorrow. And I log in tomorrow, and it still says B. And I guess I just got to have to hope that this doesn't change, because I can't investigate it. Like I can't ask the professor if this is right, because then she's gonna be like, "Oh no, you're right. It's not. It's an F." Right? Or I can't ask other kids because they might rat me out. I mean, I don't know. I can never talk about this again. Right? I've never talked about it 22 years until tonight. And so I just tell my parents, I got a B in astronomy. And they're like, well, college is hard. It's a new subject for you. Don't beat yourself up about it. And I'm like, oh, no, don't worry. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I took myself out for a celebratory breakfast at the Waffle House. And while I'm sitting there with my eggs and bacon and pancakes and syrup and coffee and orange juice, I resolved that I'm going to have to procrastinate a lot less next semester and study at least a little bit harder. And I start leafing through the course catalog, and I pick out my next science class, and it's called Physics for Poets. Thank you.
Oh, why are you so tall? Is there any way we can get that picture back up on the screen of Will? Anyway, nope. Okay. All right. There we go. So I would say the most shocking part of that story is that this kid smoked pot. I don't know. Like, this is a lot to take in here. Like, note the shirt, note the patterns on the shirt, note the facial hair choice. I can see the little bit of the ear piercing here, the frosted tips. You look like you're playing for Sugar Ray. Like, this is truly something. This kid also likes Jim Jarmusch. Let's point that out too. Oh, I see. That did sound like a hard class, though, to your credit. That sounds like I would, especially if there's a lot of math involved. Not my thing. You can tell because I'm up here doing this. Anyway, one more time for Will. All right, before we get to our last storyteller, a little bit of housekeeping here. Now that we are a monthly show, We are always looking for new storytellers and new stories to feature on the show. It doesn't matter whether you've been on The Moth a million times. It doesn't matter even if you've ever told a story before. We'd love to hear your pitch. So shoot us an email at awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com. Just a 2 to 3 sentence pitch of what your story's about. If we'd love to hear more, we'll reach out to you. We're always looking. And if you just enjoy the show, you want to find out when the next one is, you can follow us on social media. We are at Awkward Teenage Years on Instagram, Awkward Teenage Years on Facebook. What's the Twitter handle again? It's Octeen Years. I post on it on the time. You'd think I'd be the one to remember it, but no, Octeen Years. We're on Twitter. That is the main point. And if you want to get the gist of what our show has been like before, it's been a long journey through this pandemic, but you can find the archive of our past shows on YouTube. Just follow Awkward Teenage Years. Give us a shout. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you guys again for coming out. Our last storyteller of the night, another 3-time guest. He has been published in the Washington Post. He is a Moth Story Slam champion. He is the founder of the show Unreeling. And he is now the community program manager at The Moth. So give a big round of applause for Devan Sandiford.
Two great hairstyles in a row. So I'm 16 years old and I'm in this really nice living room. It's my friend's living room. She has this living room that has really tall ceilings, a 2-story house. On both sides of her house, there's you can overlook the valley. It's really open. And the thing that I love most about her living room is her parents. They leave us alone. And so it kind of feels like we're adults, and I'm there with her and 2 of our other friends, and they're going to introduce me to this new show. It's the sitcom Friends. And I sit down next to them on the couch, and it comes on. And even just from the very beginning, I'm already loving this show because of the song. It's like, so no one told you life was gonna be this way. With the claps, I'm like, it's impossible to watch this, hear this song, and not be happy. And I'm like, okay, watching Friends with my friends in a living room while they're in a living room, this feels just so good to me. And we go every Thursday evening, or almost every Thursday evening, we start watching the show, and I quickly develop a favorite character. For me, that's Joey. He's kind of goofy. I love the way that he jokes. He's got his Thanksgiving pants. He's like, how you doing? And I'm like, this is my guy. He doesn't always know what's going on, but I feel like he's a little bit of the glue of the show. And so I really like the show, and I continue to go back, and I enjoy watching with my friends. And then this one Thursday, I'm hanging out with another friend, my friend Kurt, and I'm at his house. His house is just up the block from me. It's close enough to walk. I don't have to even drive. And I love going to Kurt's house as well. Kurt's house is completely different than Jen's. It's very similar to mine. Instead of being an open living room, it's kind of compartmentalized. And the thing that's special about Kurt's house, though, is there's always people over there. It's him, his younger brother, my cousin, his friend that's in college, his other friend, and his parents are always there, making us food. And I just love being there with the family. And I always have a great time at Kurt's house. And this one Thursday, I tell him I'm gonna go to Jen's house and watch Friends. And I go to tell him bye, and I can remember he stopped me and he looked at me and he's like, "Oh, you're gonna watch Friends, huh?" Well, I've never seen Friends because there's no Black people in Friends. And I'm 16 years old, so I'm trying to do my best to play off oh yeah, I mostly just want to hang out with Jen and the rest of my friends. I know what you're talking about. But as soon as I get into my car and start heading to Jen's house, all I can think about are the words that Kurt said, that there are no Black people in Friends. There are no Black people in Friends. And as I drive to her house and pull up next to her house, I'm not thinking about her hill that overlooks the valley. I'm not thinking about her grand living room. I'm just thinking about watching this Friends episode and finding at least one Black person. There has to be at least one, because Kurt can't be right. And I sit down on the couch and the song comes on. So no one told you life was going to be this way. But this time it doesn't have the same kick. I'm just focused in a completely different way. And I'm watching this episode, staring at the screen, looking for a Black person. And sure enough, the entire episode goes by. I do not see one Black actor. I do not even see a Black extra. But I'm 16 years old and I'm pretty stubborn, so I decide I'm going to come back the next Thursday and I'm going to do this again. And there's going to be a black person. And I don't remember how many times I went back, maybe 2 or 3 times. But each time, sure enough, there was no black person. And until this one Thursday, I'm watching this this scene where Chandler and Monica are in the restaurant and they don't have reservations, and I see a black person walk in. It's the person I would now describe as the Allstate guy. He walks in and he's got this woman attached to his arm, and they're going in and they do have reservations. And it's like he's got just a 5-second scene, but as I'm like watching them come in and out of the scene, like I look closer and I notice that it's not just one black person, but the second black person, the woman on his arm, is somebody that I know. It's actually a friend of my mom. And I was looking for that one black person and I thought it would make it better, but it actually made it worse, because as I realized that it was somebody that I knew personally, I realized how much of an anomaly this was. And even though I knew my friend Jen and the other friends there, they were not white, but they also were not black. They loved me for who I was, but every time I would go and watch Friends, it just became like the representation of me being this anomaly, because I grew up in this really predominantly white neighborhood. And every time I thought about this show and about Kurt's words, I started to think like every single thing has to be connected to race. I was there enjoying this show, and of course, race came in again. And all the times I thought about like, even race defines, I gotta have shoes and clothes that match my race. I gotta walk and talk a certain way because of my race. And I decided it was just like too much to bear, and I stopped watching Friends altogether. And as I stopped watching Friends altogether, I thought about, my parents had educated me about police brutality and talked about how I should carry myself in the world and how I should talk to police officers. But they had never told me about all the ways race shows up in my life. And that was really hard for me. But at the same time, there was tons and tons of shows that I loved. Actually, one of my favorite shows of all time, still to this day, is The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I love that show. I loved the Jamie Foxx show. I loved Martin. I loved Living Single. And if I think about it even now, Living Single is basically the exact same premise as Friends. Friends in a living room just together. And I think actually Friends was made after Living Single. And Living Single has this great song as well. It goes, living single in a 90s kind of world. I'm glad I got my girl. You keep your head what? So I wasn't really too worried about Friends. I let it go. I was done. I was fine. I moved on. And it wasn't until this year, when the Friends reunion came 20 years later, that I thought about this moment and that I had let go of this show that actually was something that was important to me and that I did have a connection to. When I think about who Joey was, this funny guy who never seemed to know what was going on, that fit me perfectly. But because of my race, I had to no longer watch this show. And not only that show, I let race define the way I watched. I never watched Seinfeld. I've never seen a single episode of Cheers. I had to watch all of How I Met My Mother secretly when no one knew. And I thought about how much race impacts everything, to the point where I'm thinking probably my non-black friends probably haven't seen Living Single. And I find myself always in this middle space of knowing the two worlds and wishing that they didn't have to be black and white. Why does everything always have to be black and white? But as I thought about that song, Friends, I realized that it wasn't just this catchy song, but actually that first line started to define what my existence was. Because no one ever told me life was going to be this way.
Devan Sandiford, everybody. All right, guys, that's our show. Give it up one more time for our lineup. Devan, Saad, Marina, Valarie, Will. A big thank you to Arez and everyone at Frigid. Give a round of applause for Justin in the tech booth. Everyone, I'm your host, Grant. Thank you guys for coming out. We will see you in November. Thank you so much.